Hey everybody, this is Chip.
This is Chris, and we have a really special episode for you this week. We're going to be doing our deep dive and give you our race report for Ödyssey Swimrun Austin.
Yes, so cue the rock flute. Welcome to the Low Tide Boyz. I'm Chip.
And I'm Chris. And this is episode, I don't even know what number we're on.
45.
I think 45. And we got a special episode for you this week. We're doing our race report for Ödyssey Swimrun Austin that just happened last Sunday, November 8th. And it's been a while since we've done a race report.
It
was actually episode 8 when we did our Attila Catalina race report way back when in early March. So we're really excited to chat about our experience, Ödyssey, and
Texas.
basically Texas, and basically talk about. Anyway, there's a lot to talk about here. I think our own evolution in the sport by hosting this show and talking to a lot of swim runners.
Yeah.
I think it really showed up on our performance, which I'm super stoked on. I know you are too, Chipper. So why don't we just go into sort of initial thoughts?
Yeah.
Going into the weekend.
So, I mean, I'm not going to lie. Personally, this whole week was really stressful. It was the election week.
Oh, totally.
So doesn't matter what side you're on. It was a close race. So there was a lot of stress on that, and I did have some anxiety and stuff about traveling in the era of COVID. So I think a lot of that was kind of stressing me out a little bit. And as far as my training went, I felt that for the situation that we're in right now, I felt our training, my training personally, was pretty good. I could have done better on the run and could have a little bit more endurance on the run. But in terms of our swimming, we were more consistent in the pool for this kind of race build than we were in Catalina, hands down.
That's true. And I also think I think I've been doing more cardio than you, just how I've been dealing with COVID or whatever. But I think we would have said that regardless. At any performance would have been we could have trained more. We could have, focused more on running or swimming or whatever. So I think with all that, I share the same thing. I had a lot of trepidation about going, and I really didn't make the decision until Thursday. I think you and I had chatted about, it's at any point, anyone can just pull
that
the
was
plug
our
on this.
our rule.
I'm taking care of my parents or elderly, family. I just can't get sick, basically. And so that was on my mind, but I also really wanted to race. And after talking about swimrun all year, every week.
And being super fucking consistent with everything.
Oh my God, totally.
I mean, it was, I hope this comes out to everybody, but we put a lot of energy into the sport, and it's finally time to show for it.
Yeah, and there was just a lot. I mean, I have a lot of feelings about it, but in the moment while we were racing, which we'll do a leg by leg breakdown, and we're going to talk a lot about the race this episode. Yeah. So you're really going to get a flavor of how everything went down. It felt like I was transported into a time when COVID didn't exist, right?
Yes.
Precautions were taken. We're going to talk about that later in the show, masks and all that stuff. But while we were racing, it just felt like we were in Catalina again, or doing what we've done for a long time, and sort of we kind of just tapped back into the magic of swimrun without really worrying about anything else. I wasn't thinking about Biden or Trump. I wasn't thinking about COVID. I was just thinking about, our transitions tight?
Is Chipper going to blow up behind me? On the
more
run.
More on that later.
I hear him huffing and puffing pretty hard. Is he okay?
Yeah, the magic of the tether was a new experience for sure.
I would say, as a team, you and I had the most swim run training we've ever had in our entire careers as swim runners. I mean, we were a few times a month, we were going out doing swim run specific practices that we would go out and we would say, we're going to focus on our transitions and swimming hard for 400 yards. Or we had these very specific, we're not dogging in and we're not dogging out of everything. and we would charge in and we would charge out of the water. I mean, how many hard transitions did we do in the last 4 months? We probably did 50.
Yeah.
And I think it paid off.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of people to thank for that, and mostly it's our previous guests. Like we've just absorbed, as I hope our listeners have, we've absorbed a lot of that content. And in many ways, on race day, it seemed pretty self-serving because we definitely try to internalize a lot of those pro tips that we heard, whether it's from Beacon Blake or the Monks or Team Precision UK or Bronwyn and Greg. I mean, there's just a lot. Oscar. So I think why don't we get into getting to Texas and the pre-race meeting. So we took separate flights. Chipper was in Texas for about 50 hours. I was in Texas for about 26 hours. And then we made it to Paceman Park, and we were fashionably late. We were about 10, 15 minutes late.
I picked Chris up from the airport, and we drove straight there.
Straight there, yeah. And as soon as we park, we see Beacon Blake, and they're giving us like, "Hey guys, you're late," kind of, pointing at their watches, which is pretty funny. It was great to see them. It was really great to see a lot of people that we've either met at Catalina or that we've been corresponding with in some sort of virtual form or whatever. So we wanted to do kind of like a big shout out, kind of like we did it for our Catalina race report of just everybody that we remember meeting.
Yeah.
And this is
probably forgot somebody.
We probably forgot somebody, so we apologize. But yeah, do you want to kick it off?
Sure. So Drew and Michael,
Brooke and Samantha,
Adrian,
Trevor, aka the Copper Paladin,
Krista and Amy, who brought us a humongous Texas-sized donut from R&R Donuts. Should we tackle that story now or just wait later?
We should just do it now.
Okay. So there had been, I'm sure you guys have seen this. We went to Voodoo, took us a video at Voodoo where there's a Voodoo versus R&R kind of donuts comparison going on for the top Texas donut. So we were there talking to like Andy Hewitt and the Monks and Beacon Blake and Lars and everybody. And Tristan and Amy came up and they're like, okay, hold on. And they got this box, and it looked like a regular donut box.
Yeah, like a dozen donuts.
And I was like,
inside.
oh my God, the last thing we need to be eating the day before is a dozen donuts. Because
even though we do have a tradition of just eating like shit before race.
We do, and it does heavily involve donuts. But we opened this thing, and it was a giant
donut,
a single donut, half chocolate glazed, half regular glazed. What would you guess the diameter?
It was bigger than your face.
Yeah, it was about as big as what your head would be like.
Yeah, it was pretty big.
And we had a great laugh with that, and then we took some really silly photos with it that you'll have to check our Instagram out for that.
Definitely. So then we also met Mel, who she's part of the California Swimrun crew, so it was cool to meet her.
Yep, Jenny as well.
Bob.
Rick from Florida.
Chase.
Chris.
Not me, some other Chris. Matt.
Melissa.
Gemma.
Kristen, who's also the race director at Swimrun Lake James, which is coming in April 2021.
Yep. We also met Lee Green.
Like the color.
Who's my new bestie. Had an awesome time chatting with that guy.
And obviously the entire Ödyssey team. We met Aaron for the first time. Nice seeing Lars.
Lars's dad.
Lars's dad, the voice of Ödyssey. All the volunteers. It was cool. It was cool to see people. And anyway, before we get too far down the road, in addition, we also had a bunch of our previous guests who are on the show who were there. So Bronwyn and Greg, aka the Boston Red Sox, were there. Andy Hewitt, Blake and Beak from Team Envol, Baywatch, Sean and Philip from the Swimrun Monks, Marcus Barton, who we love, Mr. Low Tide Boy himself, John Stevens, who did a cameo in our Gear Talk episode, who will have a full interview coming soon, and of course Lars Vananger, who's the race director. So it was super cool to kind of connect with these people. Some of them we'd met at Catalina. Some of them it was just online trying to get them on the show. And yeah, I mean, it was different than Catalina, where people were like, "Oh yeah, you guys are the Low Tide Boyz." Like at the pre-race meeting afterwards, like it was a little weird when there was like people lining up to take photos with us. That was very, very awkward. And I will say, we felt the same way after Catalina. It, to me personally, and I know Chris, we talk about this so much, is like this whole situation and how this is right now is so surreal to us that, the Monks or someone wanted to take a picture and we're like, oh yeah, sure, no problem. And then we're like, oh wait, these people are next. And we're like, there's people wanting, we're just doing this because we just love the sport so much, and the fact that everybody has said nothing but positive words to us. I mean, I forgot who it was, but somebody said, I just learned about Swimrun 2 months ago, and I signed up for this race, and I listened to every episode that you guys did.
Well, that was Bob who told us that on
was
the
Bob,
last mile of the thing. He was
Bob.
he's like, are you guys the Lost Boys? I'm like, sometimes.
Yeah, it feels
and he
like
was it's like, no, but he's like, the Low Tide Boyz. Like, I listen to all your podcasts. And he was all kitted out too. It was awesome. You had like the Uto suit.
He was loaded with
He was ready
stuff.
to go. And he told us before he finished he was going to do another one, which is awesome. He was from San Antonio, I think.
Yes, from Texas.
But yeah, I mean, that whole thing was cool. I mean, obviously, when you put yourself out there and you start a podcast and you start producing content, like that is hopefully one of the side effects is that people appreciate what you do. But it's still kind of just crazy to us that anybody is listening. And even while we were on the course, people, while we were running, they're like, hey, are you guys the Low Tide Boyz? I recognized your voice. And we're like, what?
Whoa.
Like, that's crazy. It's like, you guys are hilarious. I'm like, tell my wife that, okay? Can I just like get that written down? So it was really cool to get all the love on the course, people showing gratitude. I mean, we were trying to give that gratitude back because, I mean, I definitely felt it. I can speak for you. It was just like every time someone said that they appreciated the show, we were like, man, thank you so much for listening. Like this guy Chase came up afterwards and he was like, yeah, it's my first swim run. And like, basically did everything you guys said. It was cool to hear, and the fact that he didn't have a total catastrophic failure at the course.
He was alive still. I did everything you said. I'm somehow still alive.
Yeah, so all that was great. So as Chipper mentioned, that night we had some shenanigans in the hotel room where we were like doing everything with the tether on, and and then the next day was race morning. So I think we should just do like a leg by leg breakdown.
Cool.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I was actually a little bit concerned the weather was going to be a little hot. And so a little bit more on that on race day, but I was concerned about the heat because I used the Arc Uto, I used the Arc Orno 2, which is a pretty lightweight swimrun wetsuit, but Chris with his Arc Vig, strutting around his Arc Vig, really had me feeling a bit jealous, to be honest.
I definitely feel like I had the right suit for the mission.
You did.
And I love that suit.
So 7:00 a.m., November 8th, gun goes off.
Yep. Wait, before we do gun goes off, we should mention that I think Ödyssey did a really good job with their like COVID policies. So everyone had a mask. They did like a sort of a time trial start where everyone went 5 seconds apart. Which kind of kept the course pretty spread out. Like we definitely weren't bunched up. Like after the first couple swims and runs, it kind of spread out and you're kind of doing your thing.
I think the first swim we traded elbows with one person or something, but other than that, it wasn't bad. Or that could have been a floating log. I'm not sure.
There were some underwater hazards, which kind of freaked me out. But yeah, so the start went great. It started with a 2-ish mile run. They had to adjust the course a little bit before, which is classic swim run. So if you memorize the course, it's like, guess what? Like just follow the flags.
Totally.
That run was fine. I think I was definitely feeling amped up.
Spicy.
Definitely feeling amped up. And again,
the pace was spicy.
And it was kind of like, we've been talking about this. We've been thinking about it. We've been training for it to actually be able to do it, which didn't seem. I mean, it was on the books, but so was Casco, and so was Swimrun.
Every other
everything,
every race.
So it was nice. So that first run was fine. I wasn't anything super memorable. A little bit of a hill.
Yeah. Through kind of the
Girl Scout
camp, which seems really cool. I'm like, we
like
were
a ropes course.
Yeah,
and stuff.
It looked like pretty badass.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And then that took us into swim 1, which was about a 650-yard swim, which felt a little short to me. But that swim was just uneventful. I mean, most of the swims, I would say they were uneventful. The current wasn't really that noticeable until the last swim, which we'll talk about.
It's a pretty neutral course, I will say. It didn't favor a really strong swimmer. It didn't favor necessarily a really fast runner. Thought it was a very neutral course. I will say the water temp was amazing.
It was nice.
It felt really good.
It was nice.
If I had to pin the temperature, I would have said probably in 62 to 64.
Yeah, maybe I would say maybe a little bit warmer than that, but not much. Yeah. But it was refreshing, and it was overcast. So I think when the sun did peep out, it definitely started getting
cooking,
toasty real quick. Especially everyone's wearing black from the wetsuits and stuff. But the sun stayed away for most of the day, which was good. So after that first swim, then the second run was about 1.25 miles. And again, wasn't very eventful, except that's when we really started getting some of that Texas Hill Country trails, which was rocky, debris, like
loose rock everywhere. Basically, if you have a really lazy kind of run style where you're not picking your feet up, like you're dragging your feet along, you're gonna have a real bad time because Case in point, I got caught up at the end. We'll get to that, but like if you kind of drag your feet and you have lazy like foot carriage, that could be a problem. But yeah, I mean, and there was cactuses all over. Like you didn't dare kind of really go off course because it didn't look too inviting.
Yeah, and I thought the course was pretty well marked. Like there wasn't any point except, we'll talk about it later, where there was one moment of lack of focus. But yeah, I think, the runs, I would agree. I think it wasn't a swim heavy or run heavy course. I think it was pretty well balanced. If you're a really good runner, it could compensate if you weren't that great of a swimmer. If you're a really great swimmer, that could compensate for you being sort of an average runner.
Right.
And then if you're, like Bronwyn and Greg, and you're just great at both, then you just destroy the course.
Destroy everybody. Now, the sort of strategy we employed, and we went through leg by leg the night before, marking out, talking through stuff, how we would handle things. And I think, Chris, this really shows our confidence as teammates. Is like we've done so much shit together over the years, endurance stuff and other stuff, and we know each other and how it's going to work, that we're so fluid when we race, I feel. And we just started saying, okay, Chris, you want to lead this one? This is coming up. This is going to be 700 or whatever it was. Okay, you swim out 400 or whatever. I come around and I finish the swim out, since I also have my contacts in and Chris doesn't. So I had a little bit better closing, little bit better reason to close those swims out.
Yeah, even though this swim, I thought it was really well marked. I mean, you're pretty much along the island the whole time, so it wasn't like you had a sight like across like a sound or something. Right.
It was really nice because basically you just kind of look out. If you're a right side breather, you would just make sure you're staying right along the cliff line. But yeah, swim 2 was good. I did like overall in the swims that you had some exits that were pretty chill, that you just kind of ran out. And then you had some kind of ones that were a little challenging. You had to climb out of some rocks and stuff, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, we'll definitely get to those. There's definitely some teamwork for those. Run 3 was, that's when it was basically like 4 runs that were super long.
This one cut across the park.
Kind of like not counting the first one. But yeah, run 3 cut across the park, so it had some climbing in it. I think that's where I started leading the runs more. I think the first couple of runs, I let you lead. And then afterwards, I was like, well, let me just get us along.
Yeah.
And this is the first time that we've raced sort of aggressively with a tether, not in practice.
Yeah.
And I think that I learned a lot from that, where, the tether really, it makes you be really connected to your partner. Like I could tell immediately, like if you were off the pace even a little bit, like when it got taut, like I could feel it right away.
A little thing.
Yeah. And it was like, and then I knew to back off, or I'd be like, oh, he's just being a pussy. Like, let's just like come on, dude, like, let's go.
He's not breathing hard enough.
But that felt good too. And I would say this race, more than our previous races, there was less of the usual chit chat. I think we were racing more this one.
Honestly, I didn't have it in me. I couldn't chit chat. I was at the yes or no. I was up in, I was redlining it. If I may say something about the tether, over all of our swim runs that we've done, it's been I don't want to say hotly debated thing between you and I about if we should run with it or not, but I think we always kind of felt it was easier to run without it connected, just because that's what we normally do, right? Mm-hmm. We had it on and we were running with it. From the person that usually manages the tether, it was such a relief to not have to worry about and deal with that bullshit. So if you're a team and you deal with, okay, I'm unclipping and we're going to give it to somebody, having to not do that was such an amazing experience. And honestly, it made me feel really enabled on the transitions to just charge out and be right there, because it was that complexity of like, okay, unclip.
Waiting
I have
for me to
unclip,
or
then
or
I have
you're
to roll it up.
Me,
Then where am I going to stick it? Oh, I need okay, my swim cap's here. And it's like, so much mental capacity was freed up. Maybe, I don't know, maybe that says I don't have very much to begin with, but like to not have to worry about that. So I would really strongly advise anybody that is on the fence about the tether, give it a shot on a run, on like a swim run practice.
Or try to leave it on and just see how that works. I mean, I thought it was really helpful. I think we mentioned at the beginning, I think our sort of cardio fitness was a little imbalanced just because I've been just crushing the bike just because I got nothing better to do. So it was helpful for me to know kind of what pace I could lead, because a lot of it was single track, so there wasn't really an opportunity to even run side by side. But it was helpful for me to kind of like, I mean, I knew that I was pushing us along on the runs, but I knew like there was only so much I could do without like just tweaking my hip out or something.
And I will say, as the slower person, not having to go, hey man, wait, like pull back, constantly saying that, because it, for me personally, it is a little bit like when I say that, actually say it out loud, I'm like, let me hold us back. Like in my head, that's how it feels like. Let me hold us back and not do as good. So by not having to do that, and with this like almost an unspoken thing that was happening, that sort of signal you already had. You didn't need my feedback.
Right. Yeah. It was like, I forget who calls it this, the umbilicus.
Yeah.
Was that better tethered together? That's what they called it.
It feels like it could be.
But that's how it felt. Like I felt like we're really connected, even though we weren't chatting as much. And I felt like we were being a little bit more racy than we had been in the past. I think like at Catalina, which was a huge effort for us, I think we were fitter and just smarter now. Mm-hmm. So I think where we saved a lot of time, and maybe that made it appear that we were being racier or sportier. I don't know. I don't know why I'm saying racier or whatever. Was the fact that we weren't kind of spending too much time in transitions. I think or transitions, but also aid stations. So aid stations were really quick. Like we had planned the night before when we were going to take our gels, and we basically agreed we're just going to take the gels every time that there's an aid station, whether you take a whole thing or not, except for the first one because it was pretty early on.
And from a COVID standpoint, I thought the aid stations were handled really, really well. You had two volunteers that were, masked up and everything, and they were just kind of standing back from everything, kind of like, hey, here's the box of gels, so grab one. Here's on the right is water, on the left is Precision Hydration 500 or whatever, and you do it, and it was such a quick, painless experience. I actually kind of prefer it. It was nice.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like a big old spread of food or anything like that, because that's stuff like you can't just have like fruit and stuff because someone has to cut it and
so
watch.
You could either get gels or bars, and they had a couple flavors in each box.
Yeah, and for the most part, I didn't have any issues with the energy station placement, and I appreciate. I mean, we're going to give there's a whole section for Lars on this thing, but I'm just going to mention it now. Like, I really appreciated how, when we did our course preview, we noticed, or we mentioned that some of the energy stations were sort of before the swims, and he heard that and he was like, "Oh yeah, that actually doesn't make sense. It does make sense to have it after the swim before you start to run and get a little something to kick in, right?" And he changed it, which is great. I mean, it wasn't an ego thing. It was like, oh, how do we make this race experience better? And I really appreciated that. So anyway, run 3, we cut across the park back to the west side, where then we'll have a couple 3 swims that'll be, quote, against the current. Yeah. But I didn't really notice the current too much. And actually those swims I thought were the coolest, because that's when we were swimming sort of along the limestone cliffs.
That was cool.
So swim 3 was pretty long. It was almost 1,200 yards. Felt short though. I think
it was one of the longer ones.
It was one of the longer ones. The longest swim was the last swim of the day, which we'll talk about. After that swim, we went into the longest run of the day, which is a 5K, and that was one where kind of go to the southern tip of the park, where there's like a little bit of an out and back. There's an energy station there.
On the turnaround.
Got to see a bunch of our friends coming the other way.
While they're coming back and we're going out.
Exactly.
And this was the run for sure. And so again, I mentioned I was really concerned with the heat. So something that I knew just from all of our practices was when I take my swim cap off my head, that is really big for heat management for me, and unzip the wetsuit. But I knew for this 3-mile run, because we've been doing some 5K runs, we've done a little bit longer runs. And I know once the distance kind of hits that 2.5, 3 mile mark, so I guess that's 25, 30 minutes. If I'm running, even with no swim cap and my suit up, and it's 60 degrees,
and
I'm going to be boiling.
We decided the night before, we're like, all right, that's where Chipper's going to cap down. For me, I was going to call an audible because the vig was so light. I ended up not cabbing down at all, just unzipping.
How much were you unzipped during the race? Every run?
No, every run where I took the paddles off, I would unzip.
Right.
So pretty much all sort of like the first
anything
run,
over 2 miles or whatever?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much all the runs except for the first one and the fifth run, which we'll talk about in a little bit. I kind of took the paddles off. So that 3.3 mile run was fun because it was definitely the most running, a lot of different types of terrain.
Yeah.
Which was cool. And then that kind of led us back.
It was shaded too, which I appreciated some of the part that was shaded.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's when the sun peaked out a little bit and we were like, oh man.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
But they went back into the clouds and really didn't show up until later in the race. So after that run, there was kind of like a sketchy boat ramp entrance where we got some advice to not just go down the boat ramp because it was going to be really mucky. And we just kind of skirted around the rocks and then kind of jumped in on the side, like belly flopped in.
Because it was really deep there for some reason. It was like 8 feet deep.
Yeah.
Really weird.
It was like the very end of the boat ramp.
Yeah.
And it was like they must dredged it out or something. And that swim was cool. I just handled that whole swim by myself, so pat myself on the back for that.
Your swims,
kind of give Chipper a break.
Your swims were like, your swims were on fucking point the whole day, which is really nice. From, the way we kind of divvy it up is like, Chris is usually kind of running the point on the runs and I kind of manage the swims. But it was really nice to have that extra kind of confidence because the first couple swims when you were leading those out, sighting was great. Really tight line, good cadence. Like I wasn't like running up your ass the whole time.
Yeah.
It was really good. And that kind of, I think, built the confidence as the race went on. That was like, okay, you can totally, not that you can't handle it normally, but like it totally made me.
Well, sighting, I will say, sighting was really easy.
Yeah.
But, as a pro tip to folks that are contemplating doing races or this was their first race, the straightest line you can take from point A to B, that just saves you so much time. Yeah, the 3 places where you save time is swimming straight, transitioning quickly, and not wasting time at aid stations. We probably saved in the day, and this is in hyperbole, we probably saved like 30 minutes from just like pooping around, like coming out and like, oh, you ready to go? Okay, let's go. Yeah, so I think, in that respect, I think we did really well.
Yeah, I would say 15 to 25, 30 minutes is not crazy.
After that swim, that was what I think probably the most technical exit where we literally just climbed out on rocks and did this sort of like cliff face kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
that
got
was fun,
onto
though.
the ridge. Yeah, it was cool.
It was cool.
It was definitely cool. And then that was just a short 1/2 mile run to get to where basically the cliff jump area was.
Yes.
Which I know this is going to disappoint a lot of our listeners, but we actually didn't do the cliff jump because we were moving so well and the cliff jump added like a couple 100 yards of swimming. And we were like, screw it, let's just go. Like we're actually doing well here.
So basically the 200 to 300 extra of swim, because you kind of would run up and where you would cliff jump off, you could also just run down all the way to the water's entrance, which was maybe 300 yards. That took us 30 seconds to run. Yeah. Not even 30 seconds. Would have taken us 3 minutes.
Yep.
So we saved a little bit there. And I think we were 50-50 on the cliff jump, depending how the day was going to go. If we were maybe not being able to push or the pace wasn't there, we were going to do it for fun and to have fun.
Yeah, for the photo op.
Yeah, for the photo op to make it on their website maybe. And then on the flip side, we're like, hey, if we're moving well and we're kind of in this thing, which was always kind of our stretch goal, I guess, I'll be honest. We didn't really have any time goals or we want to be in X place or whatever, but we were moving to where both of us were feeling so good about how we were racing that we're just like, let's keep going. And let's just keep pushing this. Not that the cliff jump would have really taken us out of it, but I think the mindset, it would have maybe adjusted it a little bit for us. Like, we lost some time there.
I definitely turned off my, this will be great content for the show to do like a cliff jump and tell people about that, to being like, oh, wait, no, we're actually racing this. So let's just keep racing it right now. And it's funny, we saw Lars And he was like, cliff jumps are here, but you can, go down there if you just want to keep going. We're like, all right, yeah, we're just going to keep going. He was like, all right, guys, see you later.
Yeah. We just ran. And we're literally running on the cliffs. And we look over and there's people that are just jumped off and doing their swim. And we just jumped in front of like 8 people.
Yeah, and that's where we kind of caught up with a lot of the short course people, which was cool to see because, I mean, for a lot of those people, that's their first swim run. So it was great to see people enjoying it and like hanging out and doing all that. But the next swim, which was swim 5, was supposed to be about 1,000 yards, but that we cut that short by... I thought that swim was short. I think it was like a 600 or 700 or something.
Yeah, so the river kept getting lower and lower. So I think when the original measurements were posted, when maybe Lars measured it back in August or the summer even when it's really high, and it looks like it went down 10, 12 feet, and that really cuts a lot of that yardage off. But to be honest, that definitely helped us. I felt like because the swims were always coming up short, I felt like, okay, now we could really push it and really try to burn the shoulders up on these last few. Because by the time we get to swim 5, we got 2 or 3 to go, or 1.
1 to go, yeah. So that was the penultimate swim. That went into run 6, which got us across the island again. And that run was, I would say, the most technical run of the day. It was the most Texas Hill Country-ish type run. It reminded us when we did Bandera last year. Can't remember when that was. I think it was last year.
2019, really?
Just like that terrain where it's just left, right, up, down, left, right.
You're never running straight for more than 5 steps.
Yeah. And so I think I led that entire way.
Run.
And then as I was leading, when we were getting close to the last swim, I missed an arrow that clearly said left, but I thought it meant left go around like the thing.
The sawhorse.
So we did a little cruise by the finish line. Saw all of our friends that already
Bronwyn
finished.
and Greg finished
already.
High
five. Got some high fives. And Lars is like, "Where are you guys going? It's over there."
Did you guys do the last swim? We're like, "No, where is it?"
Like, "Oh, sorry, dude." So anyway, that probably cost us a couple minutes.
I'll say a couple things about this run. This run, I felt like, is when I was really, really redlining, and you were pushing, and you probably felt more tension than you normally had. But I also felt like I can maintain it. For the last 6 years, I'm like a zone 2 guy. Like I'm not a big redliner. I'm like, that's just not what I do. So that we did that, and there was even a team or something ahead of us that I'm like, I think let's try to bridge.
Well, you actually said that, hey, if you want to bridge to them, like, let's go. And I was like, okay.
Yeah. And then we caught whoever it was, I don't even remember. And then it wasn't a pass. It was just like, let's just connect up. And yeah, that almost blew a fucking gasket on that run. But I will say it was good on us that because a wrong turn or a misdirection or getting lost can really take you out of the game sometimes. And I think we were so focused that we were like, let's just go.
Yeah,
let's just get back.
And it just added, I think it added like,
30 seconds or something.
Yeah, not even a tenth of a mile or, 0.2 of a mile. But yeah, then we got to the last swim, which was an interesting entrance. You basically go down these stairs and there's like a boat dock and you just jump off the dock and just go. And that swim, Chipper was going to lead out and I was going to finish it off. But you were doing really well. I definitely felt the current. There was a little bit of a swell to our back.
And a wake, a big houseboat came by.
Yeah, big houseboat came by. Like that thing was going too fast,
Fierce.
I think. And yeah, so that swim was supposed to be 1,500. Did you feel like that swim was short or long? Or
I have about 1,000 yards.
About 1,000. Yeah. So I was going to take over, and I wasn't really paying attention. And then when I kind of peeked up, because that's the beauty about being in the back, I just had my head down and was just
sightseeing.
just kept the tether between my thing and breathing and checking out the cliffs or whatever. And yeah, I finally peeked up to, not to see if Chipper was going the right way, just to kind of see like where everything's
at. Status, yeah.
And we saw the flag already, and I was like, well, I'll just let him finish this off. He's doing fine.
So in my head, I'm going because you were rocking the swim so much, so we decided to flip it on its head, and I would lead into the swim, but we were going to kind of sandwich it. So it's 1,600, so I'm like, if I hit 400 or 500 solid, I could recover. Chris could do a big 600. He could empty the tank. Then I could come in and bring us in hot as I'm kind of have got some time to recover.
Right.
But we go in, and I'm kind of like, I'm not staring at my watch, but I'm like, okay, 400. Okay, I'm there. 500. Okay. okay, Chris.
I wasn't doing any of that.
Chris should be coming up, and then I'm going, and I'm like, okay, 600, and then I peek my head up, and I'm like, oh, there's the flag just inside this thing. So I'm like, well, I'll just bring us home. I know how much swim energy I need to expel, and I just
and at that point in my mind, I was like, oh shit, I feel bad, but he's doing okay. There's a swim exit, like let's just not even interrupt it.
And you also knew that if I was like, first of all, we should figure a signal out that the lead person can signal backwards. Hey, I'm hurting.
Like do a little like flutter kick or something.
Or do like a scissor or something. I don't know. We need to figure it out. Spell out SOS with your shoe. And
just like fart and I'll see the bubble.
Just see bubbles. And then and we brought it in there. And that was another cool swim exit too.
Yeah, it was cool. It was like it's kind of just went into this little cove and you just kind of went to the end of the cove.
Like a rock.
And when we got out of the water, that's where I was like, I'm done with this tether, Chipper. And I was like, I'm untethering for this last mile. Which, interestingly, I think that might have been bad. Because in that last run, that's where we met Bob. We had a nice chat with him as we were running in. And we had to go around this pole. And a volunteer was like, hey, watch out for that pole. And I was like, all right. And I don't know what happened there.
That message didn't get relayed back to me. And at the same time, I will say the last run, I think you
can hear the finish line.
You can hear the finish line. You know it's close. We were running with Bob. You were shooting the shit with him a little bit. Chris and I both, without even telling each other, knew that we had felt so good about this race and we had raced it so well. And it was like, we're kind of going to enjoy this one a little bit. And like, it wasn't like we're going to walk it in, but it was like we pulled off the fucking redlining.
Right, yeah. And I was thinking, too, it was like, hey, I was thinking this was going to take us like 4 hours and 15 minutes. It ended up taking us like 3 hours and 29 minutes. So we were ahead of schedule. And I kind of wanted to give Bob kind of his moment, right? He was doing it solo. I didn't want to finish with him. I was like, go get it, dude. Yeah. So we just kind of pulled the gas back so he could like get his finish line photo and everything.
So we're running, and then the monks are there, and Beacon Blake, and they're like, go, Chipper, go, Chris. And I look up, and, there's a lot of noise, and my head's swiveling around, and I felt something catch my left foot, and immediately it brought me down like a fucking Tim Pan bag of shit.
I look back, and I just hear the sound, and Chipper does like a somersault, which
somehow I fucking commando rolled out of it.
It was pretty graceful. I mean, knowing myself, I would have lost a nipple.
Oh, you would have. You would have lost your goatee part on your chin. You would have just shaved off.
Yeah, I would have had like a.
As I rolled, I remember thinking the Keel Plus feels so nice on my butt. My butt didn't have to sit, didn't have to hit the thing.
It just bounced you up.
It kind of like rolled me off. And that was not a sponsored read for ARC, but the Keel Plus. As I was rolling, I'm like, this is like it. Literally felt like a pillow on my ass as I rolled up. It was great.
That's really funny.
And I got up and I'm like, oh fuck, and my hands like.
But I'll tell you,
like, muddy and stuff, but we just kept going.
Yeah, so I think I stopped for like a second and just being like, okay, it's time for me to take care of my partner here. Right. But you just got up, you're like, let's go. I'm like, oh, okay.
Like, oh, here comes, the fucking clumsiest Low Tide Boy. Oh, Chipper baby deer legs. But and we crossed the finish line, and it was just great.
It was cool. Yeah, people cheered for us. Like, I can't remember his name, but Lars's dad was like, "Oh, the Low Tide Boyz,
Mr. Fanonger."
Mr. Fanonger. Yeah, it was cool, and like a lot of our friends were there. People who finished like an hour before we did were there, like hanging out.
The Boston Red Sox, they completely changed clothes, shower. Yeah. Greg had fresh hair gel in. It was, he had his pomade and
and then they actually left pretty soon after to make their flight. Like I think they were in Austin for like 20 hours, so they probably got the record for least amount of time in Austin.
Probably did.
But yeah, that was a race. So our ultimate stats were we finished in 3 hours and 30 minutes. 29 and change. It was the 9th men's team and 14th overall team out of 65 of the long course team. So that was pretty good. Again, like I honestly wasn't going in there. I mean, Chipper and I, you and I talked about this. Like I felt like I was kind of overtrained from like a team perspective because I know I'd been putting in a ton of volume for months. So I was just going thinking we're going to have fun, but we were moving well. Everything was working. We were putting into practice a lot of the things we've been talking about on the show, a lot of things we've been discussing. I mean, again, we have to thank, the Boston Red Sox, Precision UK, Precision Hydration UK, like, Marcus, Oscar, Johan, like all these people that were giving us like these insights on like what it takes to do really well and kind of what to focus on and how to prepare for this stuff. And I felt like, if anything, this was like we got our degree in swim running at this race where we actually we put it all together. And I think that regardless of, I mean, we didn't care what place we finished or anything like that, but it was nice to be like, oh man, we actually flexed a little bit here and everything worked.
Felt good.
Felt great.
Not that we didn't feel good about Catalina or any other races, but Catalina we finished and we're like, man, we left a lot on the table there that we're like, if we could do this race next week, we would, because we know we could crush it. This one, we finished the race and we're like, from the swim run point of view, feel pretty good, like real tight on everything. All we have to do is swim faster and run faster.
Yeah, that's it. But everything else,
I felt really good about it.
You know what Nicholas Ramirez would call the technique of swim run?
Yeah.
I felt like we had our technique down.
I would score technique. I would maybe say
how many pull buoys would you give it?
Oh, pull buoys? I would do 4.5.
4.5 pull buoys?
I thought it was really, really fucking strong day.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I think, it was just super fun to get out there. Post race was a lot of fun. Like we found some masks and put them on right away. We got these cool hoodies, which we're actually wearing. We're wearing them as we're recording.
I will. Kudos to the Ödyssey team. I mean, if you're a big metal fanatic, that's your own thing. You do you.
You got to work on that.
I got enough. Yeah, that's your own opportunity to work on. But I have so many. I don't need any more.
Right.
Metals that I don't really do anything with. The sweatshirt. This sweatshirt's not like a bargain bin thing. This is a premium hoodie, and I was like, woo, I put this on today because it's chilly.
Sure. Yeah, and I'll tell you, if anyone who knows me, this is what I do professionally, and one of the things I'm always telling race directors is up your swag game. Like, if you make a shirt, a post-race shirt that people actually want to wear,
and not
that
donate
isn't ridiculous.
Immediately.
Yeah, it's just like, I mean, how many races you just leave the shirt because you're just like, I'm never going to wear this. So kudos to Lars for actually like investing a little bit of money in the post-race swag. And these sweatshirts are great. I mean, I'm basically wearing it once because I already know my wife is going to steal it. But it's okay.
I'm not even letting mine try it on.
She also, yeah, that's probably the smart thing to do. But yeah, Susan tried it on as soon as I got home. So she already had her eyes on it, but she can have it since she gave me the hall pass to be in Austin for 26 hours.
Very nice. My wife too. I guess I should.
Kids.
Maybe I should buy.
Yeah, but post race was fun. We saw a bunch of people again. Like during the race, people were coming up to us and saying, "It's like, hey, you guys at Low Tide Boyz love the show. Thank you so much. It was so helpful. Your course preview was great." Like people saying that we're hilarious. Like it was really cool.
And it was cool because we were sitting there right at the finish line, and they were like, "Oh, here comes Rick and so we're like, that's Rick, and we like came up like high five them, and we could. Trista and Amy came through, and we were like so excited, and just to be excited for everyone, it just made the whole fucking week or the weekend like that much better. Yeah. And these people that are friends with us now, or we feel that we're like so connected with them, we got to like actualize all that, and it was just like,
exactly.
Really
and even if it's just like totally, I mean, I totally agree with that, and I think we've been spending a lot of time kind of cultivating our community on Strava, which I appreciate so much more than cultivating it on Facebook. I'm not even on Facebook, but like that whole thing, because like you see people doing the work. So I knew Rick because I saw him, being stoked about his prep, doing his final swimrun prep for Austin and stuff. So it was really cool to see everybody who was on there. Like we got to meet Adrian, who was on our show to give us like the intel when he did the course, the course preview thing. We met all these people who we'd either chatted with in some capacity or didn't even know, and they were, showing their gratitude, which for us, again, we just like bounced that right back, like
completely floored.
Just appreciate everyone listening to it. So that was really fun. And we went up to Lars and thanked him, and just like we were so happy for him. So I mean, this is a guy who's had 3 races get canceled. One of them, like there was even. If it was going to go on, there was this fear of sharks and stuff. I mean, it was just crazy. It was just like such bad stuff happening. And for him to be able to do a race in his home state, the first swim run ever in Texas, and to have it go off, I mean, from what I could tell,
without a hitch.
And I can look at these things critically because I'm the one who gets called when there's hitches, went off without a hitch.
And there was, I mean, nobody knows this but us. But when we went up there with Lars and he put our arms around us and we were like, this was so fucking great, man. And he was like, yeah, you guys, this was so good. And that moment was just...
Yeah, you could tell.
It was amazing.
Like his level of stoke.
Yeah.
I know, everyone like drinks every time we say super stoked, but he was fucking super stoked. He was, there wasn't anyone happier.
They did a really good job. And Aaron, the photography and people were everywhere.
Yeah.
You couldn't turn a corner where there wouldn't be a camera.
Hey, they know the game. They're playing the European game. Like there's going to be an awesome hype movie out of this. I can't wait to watch it.
Got a little airtime. I saw they were getting interviewed.
Tristan and did as well.
That's awesome.
So it's great that you're going to get. Those four alone can speak a lot about that course, which was really cool. But yeah, post race was great. I think. Why don't we talk about sort of our overall impressions? Would we recommend this event?
100%. We'll be back here next year. I think there was a lot of solo course.
Yeah.
And a lot of solo people and short course. And that's what we need. And when I say we, that's like the swimrun community. That's what we need to get people more into it. And I think this race really suits first timers very, very well.
Yeah.
But folks like Marcus and the Wet Sox, and you know what, to some extent, us a little bit, it brings something different that you can experience that you're not going to get anywhere else.
Yeah, and I would say, we talk a lot about kind of the magic of swimrun, but one of the aspects of that magic isn't just like being out there, being on an adventure with a partner or not a partner. It's about doing something that just seems kind of ridiculous and that you wouldn't normally do. Like, there's no reason why anyone would plot that course and do it. It's like, oh yeah, let me just do a fun, 16-mile day swimming and running at Pace Bend Park. No, it took Lars and the team to see that as like, oh, this could be actually a really interesting venue for a swim run. Like, I don't think anyone's done sort of a Texas cacti laced, swim run in the Colorado River.
Sans armadillos.
Yeah, we didn't see any. I guess they're nocturnal.
They're nocturnal.
Someone told us. But yeah, it was a great place to do a swim run. I agree. I think this was a good one for beginners because there was so much support and the swims really weren't technical. If anything, one thing that happened in one swim, there was like a tree branch underwater that kind of like tickled me and it freaked me out because it kind of got my pool buoy when I got out of the water. I don't know if you noticed, there was like a splinter in my pool buoy and I was like, oh my baby. But I took the splinter out and just kept going.
We'll have to do surgery.
But yeah, it was
from a logistical travel standpoint, the drive from the airport there was a breeze. 40 minutes. There was plenty of food around. I'm vegetarian. I didn't have any issue, getting nourishment. There's Whole Foods all over the place.
Yeah.
If you're into vinyl, you can be like me and spend an hour at Waterloo Records in Austin digging through crates. And yeah, it just seemed like there was cool camping. And how do you think it would have been different without COVID?
Well, that's
I think
a good
it would
question.
have been more of a big party at the end, kind of.
Yeah, I think there would have been a more big party. I think the course could have supported more people, frankly. It seemed like everyone spread out. There wasn't any point where there was like traffic jams or anything like that. Definitely when we were coming up on some of the solo course, the short course people, there was maybe a little bit more traffic than on the long course, but wasn't anything that wasn't. I think
if you throw 50 more people, I don't think that would have been a problem.
I think it would have been fine. Yeah. I will say about the food, I go to Texas. I used to go to Texas a lot for work. This is the first time ever that I've gone to Texas and not had barbecue. And I could have had it at the airport, but at that point I was just like, I can't eat anymore right now. But yeah, so I don't know why I need to say that, but
no, and you didn't have a donut, or you did.
I did have some of that giant donut,
and I ate more than one Voodoo donuts. I won't say the number because I'm too riddled with shame to really admit it.
So I think we mentioned it. I think if you're interested in trying swimrun, this would be a good course. Again, it wasn't super technical. The swims weren't challenging. If they were long, they were for the most part straight. You didn't have to navigate currents or crossing large bodies of water or anything. So if that's an issue for you, then you don't have to worry about that. Temperature was good.
And it was really cool to swim in the Colorado River, to say that. And it wasn't, if I know some people, you might have a fear from an open water that's like this giant, vast, unknown kind of area. Didn't get that sense at all, because there was always with 2 or 3 teams within you,
and
that you kind of felt that
you
were
kind of on the coastline.
You were right on the
time.
coast. It was like
if you had a panic attack, just like, bang a left and sit on the rocks for a bit.
And we passed a team in the water, and they just were kind of sitting up, taking a break, just chilling. They're like, "Oh, we're going the right way." I'm like, "Yeah, I think it's right around here." Like,
yeah, we were like, "Are you guys okay?"
We just wanted to make sure they were fine. But they're like, "Oh yeah, they were like taking a load off, taking it easy. Hey, cool, go for it, man."
Yeah, they looked like short course people, probably their first race, and they're just, I mean, that's the thing about it. I think we were a little bit racier than I had expected, but we kind of just went with it too. And I think that speaks to sort of our partnership. Again, like this was a race where I think we chit-chatted the least.
We didn't even,
I mean, I think at the beginning we were chit-chatting a little bit, but then once we got into that first swim and got out, we just started kind of moving.
We went to work.
It went by quick. It went by way quicker than Catalina did. That's for damn sure.
I mean, I will say I did like the shorter kind of run segments, and that's what I felt. It felt like you could push it a little harder, because you're like, I know I can run for 2 miles, and I know I can keep this pace. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like, okay, this is 10K, we got to pull back because we got 4 miles
2,000 feet of climbing or something.
So it was nice, and it was a lot of fun, man. I mean, and we raced every single swim run in the United States this year.
That's great, and also very depressing.
Yeah.
I would say, in terms of final thoughts, again, I think kudos to Ödyssey and the whole crew, Lars, Brent, John, Aaron, and everyone else. I think just thank them for even just taking the risk of trying to put this race on. I mean, they could easily been like, "Oh no, COVID, we're not going to make it. We're not even going to try," after all the other races getting canceled. But I think they wanted to close out the year on a positive note. And
mission accomplished.
It was super great. If anyone has any questions about anything on the course that we didn't cover, feel free to send us an email or send us a message. Like, more than happy to talk about this with anyone who wants to talk about it. Our wives have already gotten like the full course.
I gave my wife the download. I'm like, okay, here's my brain dump of what happened, and then I'll try to not to,
for sure,
hit you up.
For sure. I think there was, I alluded to this earlier, but like it felt like I was kind of, for some of it, I felt like I was back in the time machine where it was like pre-COVID, where you could just race and enjoy nature without worrying about, unseen viruses or anything. And it was nice to just kind of like be able to kind of not be in that headspace and just be one with nature and just move through nature without worrying about, everything else that's going on, whether it's elections or COVID or whatever. It was like a salve to the soul, really.
It was. I'll echo every statement you made, and it was. You almost got to check out from reality for a little bit, and it was like, how to race. We've done it many times, and we really got to do it, and we got to do it for 3.5 hours, and that was great, and I feel super fulfilled from that. And just meeting everybody again and saying hi and all this stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, we keep saying this.
I hope
it comes across how much appreciative we are.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate everyone for listening and checking out the course preview. That was actually our most downloaded show ever, or to date anyway. So it was. We're really glad that people found some value in that, and that everyone who went out there enjoyed it. If you didn't go out there, we really think that you should try it next year.
Yeah.
We're going to be there if at all possible, because we had a lot of fun, and I think that if it was any doubt whether we were super stoked on Swimrun before this, I'm pretty sure like
this is the nail in the coffin.
On the way back we were like, yeah, we're pretty much going to do every single swimrun we can get
to next
year. So we'll see. Now that the race season's over, we're going to be transitioning the show a little bit to talk more about just like swimrun adventures and how you can kind of get out there and do it safely and chart courses and stuff. So we're going to have a lot of guests that are going to be sort of giving us some intel on how to do that best until races come back, whenever that is. As far as we know, the first race back is sometime in June.
Swimrun Lake James.
Swimrun Lake James, April. That's right. That's right. April 21st,
20th, something like that.
So that's out there. We're hope to do a course preview for that one too. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
And if you had a good time this weekend and this is your first experience with Swimrun, I will say all we can honestly ask you to do is just tell people about it. And it doesn't, I mean, this isn't us, send them our episode or something. Like, no, literally tell them about what you did. We saw so many great posts on Instagram. Like, I did something crazy this weekend. It was a swim run, and you have your outfit, your fucking gear. You're all looking like a goofball in it. You're running with your partner, and then you're doing all sorts of fun stuff. And it's like, that's the kind of stuff that if you are genuinely passionate and are driven and love this sport, that you getting out and saying that you did this and showing people, that's what helps it spread. And that's what we really would love if you had a good time this weekend. Because we know we did, and I'm still overdue for my own, hey, I did a crazy thing this week in post. But
I already posted mine.
I know. It was too good. I'm like, I got to wait for it to cool off.
Well, the likes started dropping off, so I think you're in the
safe?
clear.
Okay,
yeah.
I'll pump it up again.
That's it for our race report. Any final thoughts?
Till next time, partner.
Till next time.
Yeah! Thank you for listening to the Low Tide Boyz, a Swimrun podcast. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast and leave a review on iTunes if you're so inclined.
You can also sign up for a newsletter at lowtideboyz.com. That's boys with a Z. And check out our meme page at The Low Tide Boyz on Instagram. If you have any questions or suggestions for the show, drop us an email at lowtideboyz@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Writing Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of our swimrun activities, hobbies, and other bullshit we do.
Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
And then a run.
And then another swim.
Then another run.
And then another swim.
And then run to the finish line. And just keep going until you're done.
Yes.
Until you cross the finish line.